welcome back to In the Kitchen. My name is Alexis and I'm the Adult Services Coordinator at the Solon Public Library. And today we are going to make French macarons. These are not to be confused with the sweet coconut-based macarons that we find in the US. French macarons have a light, airy, delicate sandwich cookie that you can fill with whatever you want in an array of beautiful colors. So let's get started. This is something that I learned how to do after many failed attempts. So if you don't get it after the first try, don't give up, keep trying. It'll be totally worth it in the end, I promise. Okay, so the first thing that we're gonna need is some eggs. We're only gonna use the egg whites today, so if you have a recipe for the yolks, that's excellent. Save them for something else. We're gonna need about a cup of almond flour, about a cup of powdered sugar, about a half cup of granulated sugar. And then for the filling, you can fill it with lots of different things, but today I'm gonna fill it with some cream cheese icing, cream cheese filling. So I'm gonna use a brick of cream cheese and some powdered sugar. If you want them to be a beautiful color, I suggest getting a gel coloring. Today I'm gonna do it in pink because when I see macarons, I think pink. So we're gonna do a light pink macaron today. If you're gonna do a color with it, it's gotta be a gel base. If we put water into macarons, that's bad news. So we're gonna stay away from the liquid coloring or liquid of any kind. Which brings me to my first point about macarons. Doing this at a certain time of year is important, especially here in the Midwest where it gets really humid. If your humidity is above 70% in your kitchen, just forget about it, don't even try. Because humidity and moisture is death to macarons. They would be flat and ugly and sticky. So you gotta be dry, okay? Try to keep everything you're doing in the kitchen dry during macarons. So, let's go. I like to weigh all my ingredients, but I know that a lot of people don't have kitchen scales. So I converted things to approximate cups and half cups. So first thing you're gonna do is with your mixing bowl, make sure that it's really clean and really dry. You don't want it to be wet at all. Then I'm gonna take my eggs and I'm only gonna use the egg whites in here. I want these 3 egg whites, which if you get grade A large eggs, an egg is between 30 and 33 grams for these grade A large egg whites, which is how I came up with my numbers for the rest of my recipe. You want to have your egg whites room temperature. They will whip up faster if they're at room temperature. So these have been sitting out for about 20 minutes before I started. Everybody has their own method to separating egg yolks and egg whites. Find one that works for you and stick with it. Now that I've got my egg whites in my jar, in my mixing bowl, I am gonna whip them until I get to medium stiff peaks. Somewhere between a soft peak and a stiff peak. Once my egg whites start to get a little frothy, kind of bubbly, I'm gonna gently sift in the granulated sugar. Your granulated sugar should be equal to the amount of eggs that you had. So if I had 99 grams, let's round it to make 100. If I had 100 grams of egg whites, I'm gonna use 100 grams of granulated sugar, which is about a half cup of granulated sugar. I'm gonna sift it in as I get going. So I'm gonna do a little bit at a time. Ooh, I'm making a mess. Sift in a little bit at a time and then keep whipping it. After I get that egg and the sugar mixed in, that's when I'm gonna add my color. I'm gonna do it while the egg is still pretty liquidy. That way it gets nice and incorporated in. When you add your color, if you have a gel squeeze tube, that's awesome. I would add about 4 drops, depending on how dark you want the color to be. I'm just gonna grab a toothpick and I'm gonna put some of my pink in there. Another thing to remember about color when you put it in is that this color is going to be darker when it bakes by just a shade than what you've got in the bowl. So if you like what you have in the bowl, it's gonna be just a tad darker than that when you bake it. Okay, so I've got that in and I'm gonna keep whipping till they're stiff peaks. while I'm whipping my eggs into stiff peaks, I'm gonna take my 125 grams of almond flour and my 125 grams of powdered sugar, and I'm going to sift them together into one bowl and mix them up. So while I'm doing this, I'm also gonna be doing this. As I'm sifting my almond flour, there's some big chunks in here that are too big to go through my sifter. So I'm gonna take those chunks and I'm gonna discard them. You don't want those big chunks into it. If it doesn't go through your sift, then you don't want it in your cookies. So I'm gonna take that little teaspoon and I just discard it and get rid of it, okay? Are starting to get fluffy, but they're not quite there yet. But I'm going ahead and mixing together my almond flour and my confectioner sugar, and I'm sifting it again because it's a little bit humid in my house today and I don't want clumps in it. So I'm just taking them and sifting them together as I mix until my egg whites are done. It's not a necessary step, but the more you sift it, the less likely you are to have clumps, which is less likely you are to have air bubbles in your cookies. So sifting it is always a plus. Alright, I've been beating my eggs for a few minutes and I just want to show you one of the stages. So this one, when I dip it in and pull it out and the egg white kind of droops over in that arch, I'm to a soft peak, that it's standing up, well, I'm almost to a soft peak, where it's standing up a little bit. It's not quite liquid, but it's also not standing up either. So we're gonna do it for just a couple of minutes more until it's a little more stiff. Let's go ahead and check it one more time. So it's still glossy, and you want it to stay glossy. So when I dip it and I pull it out, it's getting there. It's turning over just a little bit. I'm gonna go for just a minute longer because I want it to be a tiny bit stiffer than this before I add my dry ingredients. But you don't want to overmix. If it starts to get clumpy again or it starts to lose its shine, you're getting too stiff and you need to turn it off right away. See how it's starting to get stuck in my bulb? That's a good thing. It's getting thicker. So when I pull it out, my peak stands almost straight up. So I'm gonna go ahead and be done with the mixing. I'm gonna try and get as much of it off my bulb whisk as I can, just by gently tapping it against the side of the bowl. Okay, so I got most of it off. So our goal right now is to keep air in the egg whites. We made them, they're nice and fluffy. So now we wanna try and keep that air in the egg whites while we mix in the dry ingredients. So I've got my sifted powdered sugar and almond flour, and I'm gonna put like a third of it into the bowl, and I'm gonna gently fold into it. Now, folding is making sure that it's not stirring because you don't want to knock the air out of the eggs. So it's like going around the edge of the bowl and then kind of cutting through the middle with a flat spatula to just trying to gently fold it in there. Okay, so once I've incorporated that in a little bit, then I'm gonna go ahead and add the rest of my flour and sugar mixture. And I'm just gently folding it in. Now, I've done a lot when I was learning to make these, a lot of reading and YouTube videos trying to figure out like the best way, the best consistency to start piping. And there's a lot of different things that a lot of different chefs say. I've heard some say that you use 40 turns, fold it 40 times. I never count. I've heard some say that it should be the consistency of lava. But I don't know about you, I've never seen lava in real life, so I can only guess what it's like. If you have seen lava in real life, I'd love to hear about that experience, and you should email me at the library. Okay, so right now it looks globby, and it is nowhere near ready to go. When I'm gonna turn it a few more times, and it's gonna kind of fall off that spatula, almost like a ribbon stage if you're a candy maker. Okay, so now it's starting to get there. It's starting to fall off my spatula a little bit. It's still a little thick. One of the other tests that you can do is to try and, like, when it's dropping off your spatula, try and draw a figure 8 in the bowl And the figure 8 should stay visible for about 10 seconds before it then melts and immerses itself back into your mixture. And the first few times you do it, you might do it wrong, and that's okay. They still will taste good. At this point, you are knocking some of the air out of it, and that is a good thing. So it's okay to knock some of that air out to get it to this little more lava-like state. Oh, I think we're getting there. Okay, so when I turn it in this bowl and cut through, you can kind of see how when I let it drip, it's all incorporating back into the bottom of the bowl and making a nice smooth bottom instead of leaving that divide where I cut through. That's how you know when it's ready, okay? So I'm gonna call this good. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take it and put it into a piping bag. I like the big 16-inch piping bags. I usually use a reusable one, but I wanted you to be able to see it, so I'm using a clear one today. So I take the piping bag and kind of turn it inside out most of the way. And then I hold on to the cone part in the bottom, and I'm going to use my fingers in there to grab the mixture as I put it in and kind of smooth it down to the bottom so that I can fill this bag fairly easily, just like you do with frosting. You're still trying your best not to knock more air out of it as you transfer from one to the other. Need some of that air to make that meringue cookie feel. Ooh, I'm making a mess. Moving it all over. So now I'm gonna take my kitchen scissors, turn the rest of my piping bag down. I'm gonna make sure as much of my mixture as I can is towards the bottom by pinching it closed, pulling it down, and then I'm gonna tie off the top. Okay. Then I'm gonna take my prepared cookie sheets. And on these cookie sheets, I just put a piece of parchment paper. Parchment paper keeps it from sticking to the pan. Don't use wax paper. Wax paper and parchment paper are not interchangeable. Wax paper will melt in your oven. Parchment paper won't. So I'm gonna take it, and then I'm gonna take the template that I have that has the circles on it. Let me grab that. I have a template that you can print on the internet, and I'll leave it in the link below. It just has circles that are the size that I want my macarons to be, and it spaces them out far enough so that when they expand, even a tiny bit, they're not gonna get stuck together, and it's gonna give them room to bake evenly. So I'm gonna put this under my parchment paper. I'm gonna cut a hole in the bottom of this piping bag, and I'm just gonna squeeze gently from the middle and let it expand out. Some people like to do it in a circle around the circle for their template. I feel like they cook less evenly for me when I do that, so I just cut the edge off, cut the bottom off. I'm gonna hold it straight up and squeeze right in the middle until it fills up the entirety of the circle on my template. Once you get really used to piping them, you can usually do it without the template underneath and have them be relatively close to the same size. But I recommend for the first few times trying it, using a template, because even though they look the same, when they cook, you'll go, oh, this one's vastly different than the other. When you sandwich them together, they just look lopsided. So I highly recommend the template, but it's not necessary. Then I pull my template out, and I have so many nice, pretty cookies. We're gonna do as many as we can. It usually fills about 3 trays for me. Should do a little reminder about piping bags. When I pipe, I hold this upside down so it doesn't drip on my plate other places, but you want to make sure that you twist the top off nice and tight so that's kind of like a bulb in your hand. So if I twist it off nice and tight, I've got that bulb in my hand and I can hold it in my palm and squeeze from my palm towards the bottom of the cookie sheet. That way, it's not coming out the top of the piping bag, just like frosting. The bubbles like that, you want to try and fill them in if you can. It was a big air bubble in my piping bag, so it left a big crater in my cookie. I don't want that, so I filled it back up with a little more of the mixture. I've got enough for just a couple more cookies on this plate. All right. And I save that template to use over and over and over again. If I print it once, it'll last me forever because the mixture isn't actually touching it. There's that parchment paper between it. So I printed that one like a year ago, and I can keep using it until it gets too gross and I gotta try again. Okay, so next thing you're gonna do is you're gonna take, and you want to get the air out of the cookies as much as you can. So you're gonna take the pans that you did them on, kind of wrap them on the table 3 or 4 times to make sure there's no air bubbles in it. It's gonna be loud, so if your kids are in bed or taking a nap, maybe wait till they're done. You can kind of see the air bubbles come to the top when that happens. And sometimes if I still see another air bubble that looks like it's trying to get there, but it's not quite there, I go ahead and take a toothpick and just kind of pop it, because those air bubbles are not gonna be good. So now is a waiting game. You cannot put macaroons in the oven directly after piping them. They have to sit for a little while. Depending on the humidity again in your house, they've gotta sit because they have to develop a shell or a skin over the top of it when they dry out a little bit. So if it's really humid in your house, you're gonna have to wait a little longer than if it's less humid in your house. Today it's pretty humid. I'm gonna give them about a half hour, and then after that half hour, we'll come back and we'll see if they're ready to go. So I'm just gonna let them sit here. This is the time that I preheat my oven. Once I get them piped and I let them set, that's when I'm preheating, because it takes my oven a little while to preheat, and I'll get it, I won't have the kitchen be hot while I'm in here working with the eggs. So I'm gonna preheat to 325, and then I'm gonna let them sit for a few minutes and develop that skin. All right, while we wait for our cookies to dry and get a skin on them, I'm gonna show you the different kinds of fillings that you can make. There are endless possibilities of things that you could fill your macarons with. Macarons, because they're only sugar and flour and egg, they don't have a huge taste to them. They kind of absorb the flavor of anything that you're gonna put in it. So anything that you fill it with is gonna be determine what the flavor is. I know there are sometimes people put the flavoring in the macaroon shell. I have not found that to work very well, except for chocolate. If you wanna add the chocolate, the cocoa powder to the shell, that's okay because it's a dry ingredient. Go ahead and add a couple of tablespoons of cocoa powder into that mixture as you sift it in, and it'll be okay. Any other flavors I like to add to the filling. My family's favorite is just a plain cream cheese filling. Traditionally, macarons are filled with buttercream. So play around and decide what you like best. Buttercream is just a stick of butter and some powdered sugar, and then flavor it with whatever flavor that you want. You can flavor it with vanilla or almond, you can put some berries in it. But today what we're gonna do is we're just gonna do some cream cheese filling, and I'm gonna do some of them with a little bit of raspberry jam inside too. So I'm just gonna take a brick of cream cheese. This is probably gonna be too much filling for this number of macarons, but I will use it in the future, so I'm just gonna put it in my fridge and keep it for next week when I'm sure I'll make these again. If you don't intend on making them again, use a half a brick of cream cheese, so 4 ounces instead of 8. Okay, so I'm gonna put the cream cheese straight in my mixer, and I'm just gonna mix it to get it nice and smooth. Now that it's smooth, I'm just gonna add my powdered sugar and my little bit of flavoring. I'm gonna do some vanilla today, and I usually add about a teaspoon, but actually I never measure. I just kind of pour. So it's probably about a teaspoon, maybe 2. And then I'm gonna add about a half cup of powdered sugar. If you like things a little less sweet, a 1/4 cup of powdered sugar will do just fine. It's enough to make the cream cheese thick, but my family likes it pretty sweet, so we're gonna add about a 1/4, then we're gonna mix it and add a 1/4 more. Instead of vanilla, you could use lots of other kinds of extracts too. You could use a butter extract, you could use a rum extract, you could use strawberry. I mean, the possibilities are completely endless. It's not quite thick enough, so I'm just gonna add a tiny bit more powdered sugar. The filling is kind of like all frostings in that it's completely up to taste. You can follow any recipes that you want, but adding the sugar to it can come out different every single time. So just taste it, see if you like it, see if it's sweet enough. If it's too sweet, you can put in just a tad bit of salt and tone down that sweetness a little bit and still have the texture thick enough to pipe. I just heard my oven beep telling me that it was preheated. So what I'm gonna do is check and see if my macaroons have developed their skin. I wanna make sure that I have completely dry hands and clean hands because I'm gonna do a touch check to see how dry they are. I'm just gonna take it and I'm gonna touch on the edge very gently. It's still a little sticky. There's still some pink on my finger, which means the skin isn't quite developed yet. So even though it's been about 15 minutes, I'm gonna give it a few more, make sure that it's nice and dry and that it has that nice skin over the top. You can kind of see the skin too. It kind of looks drier than it did when you piped them. So give it a few minutes, make sure it's completely dry before you put it in the oven. Okay friends, I've been waiting for about 35 minutes, so I'm gonna come over and I'm gonna check and see, and they are very dry. When I touch, there's nothing on my fingers. I can see the skin forming on it. So I'm gonna go ahead and put them in my oven. Now my oven, I know it doesn't cook evenly. One side cooks way faster than the other. So I am gonna put them in for 6 minutes, and then I'm gonna rotate the pans and put them in for another 6 minutes. So if you know your oven and you know that it cooks evenly, go ahead and put them in and cook them for about 12 minutes at 325. If it doesn't cook evenly, I recommend that you take them out and rotate the pans and put them back in. So we're gonna go ahead and do that, get them in the oven on the middle rack. Alright, so I put them in 6 minutes, I rotated them halfway through, and then they came out. How nice they are. And when they cool down just a second, I will pull them up and let you see the feet on them. And when you have a macaroon cookie, it's supposed to have a nice flat top with rounded edges. Sometimes they have little dimples on the top, and the food blogs and the YouTube videos will all tell you that they're not supposed to have that little dimple. But I've been to some professional bakeries that even have the dimple. So if you have a little dimple, it probably means you just didn't do enough turns when you were folding in your dry ingredients. So next time, just do an extra turn. These today look pretty good. There are no dimples on top. They're nice and smooth. But we'll give them just a second to cool down, and then I'll pull them up and show you the feet. Okay, so on a macaroon cookie, the top is smooth, and then around the outside you have this ruffled edge. That ruffled edge is called the feet. The feet, if you have done it right, are the same color as the top. If they turn brown, it means your oven is either too hot or you cooked it too long. If your feet start to spew out instead of staying upright with the cookie, it means that you've probably turned it too many times. So next time, do a few less turns so that it's not quite as runny. If your cookie is sticking to the parchment paper, it also means that you've done too many turns and you probably have knocked too much air out of your cookie. There are 1,012 things that could go wrong with it, and so in our Pinterest page, I'm gonna put a macaroon troubleshooting guide that'll tell you if your feet are too small, if your shells are hollow. It'll tell you what to do differently next time so that you'll be able to get it perfect. Or feel free to shoot me an email and we can walk through it. So I've got these. I'm gonna let them cool for just another 45 seconds or so before I start trying to fill them and match them up. While they were baking, I went ahead and put my filling inside a piping bag. I used a 12-inch bag this time, and I cut the hole on the end very narrow. I wanted it to be just enough that it would make a nice little circle inside of my cookie. Okay, so as these cool down, I'm gonna pull them off. So as I take them off, I'm gonna match them up to cookies that are similar in size and just put them next to each other. So even though I have my template, some of them are larger than others, and when I match them up, they look silly. So I'm gonna try and match them with similar sized cookies, and I'm gonna put them bottom side face up so they are easier to fill. Ooh. That one is stuck a little bit to the paper. It's probably because it was still hot when I tried to pull it up. It's also because it was one of the larger ones and it didn't cook quite as long. So if you do a larger than a 1.5 inch, you need to cook for just a few more minutes. So it probably wasn't quite done because I piped it a little large. It's still delicious and I'm still gonna eat it. It's just not as pretty anymore. So if they get stuck to the paper, they're either too wet, like I didn't let it sit long enough and develop the skin, or it didn't get cooked long enough. And that was probably a little bit of both because it was such a large cookie, a large shell. So I'm gonna take and I'm gonna fill it with some of this cream cheese icing filling that I made. And then I'll show you how to do it with other flavors too. So I'm just gonna take it and make a nice circle around, kind of fill in the circle. A dollop of icing. And then sandwich that other cookie right on top, very gently. They're still a tad bit warm as I'm doing this, and that's okay with this kind of icing because it will kind of melt into each other. Depending on the kind of filling that you use, you want to make sure that they're cooler. They do cool fairly quickly, so taking them out of the oven, filling them shouldn't be a problem to do it right away. That's my second batch. I'm gonna rotate my pan. Now, if you want to fill it with something other than just one filling, so I'm gonna do a couple with some jam. I really like the berry jams with it, so I'm gonna get a little teaspoon. It's actually a quarter of a teaspoon or half of a teaspoon. I'm gonna take and I'm gonna make a circle in the frosting around the outside of the cookie so that it has kind of a little well. Then I take that half teaspoon and I drop that jam right in the middle. I take my second cookie and place it nice and gentle on the top. They are gonna look exactly the same as the ones without, so I always make a separate pile, or sometimes I'll do 2 batches and make them separate colors so that people can see that the pink ones have the jam filling and the purple ones have just the cream cheese filling. All right, friends, and there you go. You have yourself a beautiful macaron. Some nice feet and some beautiful filling. I hope you learned something. Come back next time and we are going to learn how to make our own homemade vanilla. If you have any questions, feel free to look on our Pinterest page, pinterest.com/Solon Public, or go ahead and email me at the library. We'll put a link in the notes. Thanks, friends. Have a good day.